I think we're live.
Yay!
Right. Hi, everyone. Hello if you're here. Let us know if you're here in the comments. And welcome to FOMO Bookclub Live. So we have Gemma from Gemma Books today and Jack from Spread Book Joy. So hello.
Hello.
And hopefully some people will join us in the comments. So yeah. And our book was I Capture the Castle.
Oh yeah, I capture. Yay! I've got a strange copy compared to yours. Like it's got your cover, Alice, but it's like it's a World Book Night copy. So it's one you're supposed to not keep hold of. You're supposed to pass on. Apparently, once you read it.
Oh, we've got some comments.
So people watching. Hey,
Nancy says hello, everyone.
Hi, Nancy.
We've got Bandana Book Mom. Hello.
Hey, hi, Talia. Hi.
We've got Paris, Texas. Hi.
Hi.
And we've got Ange. Hello, Ange.
Hi, Ange.
And Sandy. Good morning, Sandy.
Oh, hi.
Oh, morning, Sandy.
So yeah, let us know. You can see us and hear us. Hopefully you can. And let's have a look what we've got. So we've been reading I Capture the Castle for 2 months. And read it quite a time ago, so hopefully people are going to refresh each other's memories on it. But yeah, what did you think?
Look at Gemma's face tells it all. Go on, Gemma.
Oh, it was fine. It was fine. It was a bit dull for me. There were moments that I thought were really, really good. Like I think we're going to talk about the bear scene later, and I was like, right, this is it. This is where it's like really going to take off, and then it like went again. But I think it was just a bit too like teenage angst romance for me. It's just it was all about romantic relationships, and that's just not my jam.
It's not a Gemma book, I don't think. Yeah.
No.
No one like died like a perilous death.
Also, whilst they're quite poor in it, they're very kind of upper middle class, aren't they? They're kind of, and they're associated with quite upper class people. So even though they're like money is an issue for them, they're not poor. They're living, rent free in a place and stuff like that. And it's kind of, I suppose, there's no real struggles going on there because they're not going to get kicked out of their home. They're not, I don't know. Yeah. So it's not a Gemma book. There's not enough misery.
There's not enough misery.
Yeah. Well, no, I loved it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I think I didn't expect there to be so much focus on romance, I have to say, because going into it, I just knew it was like a coming of age. But then, of course, if it's coming of age and she's 17, there's bound to be some romance in it, you'd imagine. There's some, or some sort of relationship angst.
Yeah.
And there was plenty
I
of
think,
it, but yeah.
I think in the beginning, I kind of started off by thinking, I definitely should have read this when I was a teenager. I would have preferred it. But I am a huge fan of like diary style books. So I loved it. I thought it was great. But it did take me a little while to get into it. I thought part 1 was very, very slow.
I agree with you, yeah.
Once we were into part 2 and definitely part 3, I thought it was brilliant. I loved it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I think that's one of the things because Gemma, you were like reading it in between reading lots of other things, and that can make it really tricky because I found the first part, like you were saying, the whole setup with the families, a lot of character work going on, and I'm very much a plot-driven reader a lot of the time. So yeah, I found it quite slow going, and I remember thinking kind of the opposite of you, which is if I'd have read this when I was younger, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I enjoy it more now. Yeah, I enjoyed it more. I think enjoying it more now as an adult than when I was younger, because I can appreciate the humor and the writing and the characterization. And also, like when you read, do you know what it reminded me of? And I think this is something you'll appreciate, Alice, is The Diary of Adrian Mole. I
love that.
Yeah, and I love that book, and it's so witty and so funny, and it's got that kind of naive protagonist who thinks they're worldly wise, but every time they open their mouths, or every time they write in their diary, like things she would come out with were like hilarious, but she doesn't know why they're hilarious. So like kind of like Adrian Mole. So it reminded me of that kind of level of naivety where she thinks she's an adult, but there's that level of naivety about her. So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to have a look at some of the comments, see what people thought. So Lisa's here.
Hi, Lisa.
And we've got Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
And Kat as well. Hello, Kat.
Hello. Hey, Kat.
And I think this is about Gemma's opinion of the book. Andy says, Gemma.
Yeah.
As did Talia. Nancy said, I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it. And next comment, before I put it up, I'm just going to say that anyone who didn't read the book or isn't quite there yet, there will be spoilers in this chat. So
yes.
Lisa has said the bear scene was great. I read it a while ago. It's definitely one of the ones I remember.
Yeah.
And after that, where are we? Talia says, typically I don't enjoy teenage angst, but Cassandra sucked me right in.
Yeah, same.
And Nancy, I loved Cassandra, but her father was weird.
See, I preferred the father because I felt like he had some like character.
Yeah, we'll get on to the Mortmains in a minute. So Ange says, it did show a social divide with being relatively poor. That's why I was intrigued by Stephen as a character.
True.
Agree. Charlie says, hi.
Hi, Charlie.
This is going to make Gemma feel better. Charlie's left it.
Yes, I agree, Charlie. If it hadn't been my book club book, I would have been it.
But she's still here for our thoughts. And Nancy said, I don't mind slow going because I'm such a character-driven reader. I think this is a perfect book if you are like completely character-driven, because
I agree.
Yeah, but I like character-driven, but I like my characters to die.
Yeah.
You want more YA Hunger Games than I Capture the Castle, yeah.
Indeed.
And I think that's probably directed at Jem as well. And Mary's here. Hi, Mary.
Oh, hi,
Mary. Oh, we've lost Jack. Not sure what's happened there. Hopefully we'll get Jack back. And Lynn says, I read it on Audible. Jenny Agutter was the narrator and she was good. Fell asleep and totally missed chapter 13. Didn't feel the need to rewind. It was a mare read for me. Lynn's with you as well.
Agree. Unless it was the bear chapter and then you literally missed the best chapter. Here she is.
I'm back. Sorry, I've got like a touch screen. I went to move my laptop screen. I pressed the button to turn the screen off. So I was like, oh no. Sorry. I'm back.
I don't know what chapter 13 was. I'm trying to think if can't remember if you missed anything. So Nancy also says she listened on Audible as a read along. The audio was great. I didn't check out the Audible in the end, but I think it is one of the free books on Audible.
It is Jenny Agutter, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, should we have another topic? Let's have the Mortmain family. So we've touched on them. We had Cassandra, we had Rose, the sister. We had the dad, who's already had a mention as being a bit weird. We had Topaz, and the younger brother was Thomas, I want to say.
I can't remember the brother's name.
So, yeah, he didn't have to.
What was his name? I'll have a little look.
I think it was Thomas, but I'm not sure.
You're probably right, Alice. I would defer to you on this because I've no idea.
I think out of the family, I thought Cassandra was great, and I really liked her narration, and I thought it was interestingly done. And I also thought that the writing generally, like I felt like the characters were really lifelike. Like whether it was Mare or not, the characters were kind of there on the page and believable, weren't they? So, but I would say that my favourite out of the family was Topaz. I thought she was hilarious.
She was brilliant, Topaz.
If the story had been from Topaz's perspective, I think I would have liked it a lot more.
Oh, Topaz was a scream, wasn't she?
She was brilliant, like dancing naked in the woods and stuff.
I know. It's just so random. And
this is set in the 30s, isn't it? It's set in the 30s, even though it was released in the 50s. Yeah. So she's probably like, she's an artist model and she's an older she's a bit older now, so she's probably one of those ones like kind of that sort of celebrated kind of like, I don't know, you know, that kind of literary art scene that where they had all these like famous artist models and stuff going around in London, and all very eccentric. It's like she was so eccentric. I love the way she'd like walk along the battlements, and someone thought she was a ghost at one point. She's like striding along the battlements in her like big nightie and stuff. Yeah,
I think eccentric is probably a good description of the whole family, really. They were very sort of English eccentric, weren't they?
Very much.
I think we've all got someone a bit in our families.
And if you don't know who it is, it's probably you. Oh, I haven't.
I think somebody mentioned, though, the father was really weird. I can't remember who said it now, but yeah, I can't quite imagine how Mr. Mortmain, whatever his name was, had managed to get Topaz. They were not really a fit, were they?
She really had a lot of affection and love for him.
She did.
And his family wouldn't speak to her, isn't that right? Because she had he'd met her at one of his aunt's parties, one of the aunts in London's parties. That's where he met her. That's right, isn't it? But yeah, so she was disapproved of by the rest of the family, but she seemed to really care for him, and she's sort of championing him a lot. And when people felt like he's not really writing, or he's gone mad, or he's just drinking in there, like she was the one who's like, no, he's, you know, like she really backed him up. So,
and she cared for the girls as well.
I love that. I love their relationship, because she mentions her mother at one point, Cassandra, but she doesn't really have that many memories of her mother.
No.
And Topaz is quite closer in age to them, I suppose, than whatever. But she's taken that nurturing role on for them, and like she really cared for them.
And you never really
felt like it was
animosity in that. I think that's why I liked her as a character. She was so complex. She's got all these weird, wacky things going on one side, but at the core, she just had all this love and respect for people. And I think that really came through. She was probably my favourite character.
I thought it was a really good portrayal of a stepmom as well in a book, who isn't like horrible or just cliche. She was just so different.
It's really unusual for that time. It's actually, I suppose, most stepmothers, when they're in books, especially for that time, I suppose, it's this kind of like, you've got this caricature of what a stepmother is. But she was great.
So Lynn definitely did see the bear scene. That's good.
That's right. And Lynn, you're fine.
We've had a couple of people remind us that it was Thomas, the brother. Lynn agrees Topaz was great.
That's a good point, because
Mary
actually
great.
Yeah, that is a good
point.
Yeah,
he ignored her quite a fair bit, didn't he?
He was so wrapped up in his own issues and what he was doing.
And then when he got some fame, or some potential of fame, he just went off and left her.
Yeah.
It's just like, what a jerk.
I was really, really sorry for Topaz when like she kind of thought he was having an affair with the mother from the other family, didn't she? He was disappearing off to London, and I did feel really sorry for her there. Ange says she's the weird one in her family.
Ange is the Topaz.
I quite believe it.
And Charlie says they're all weirdos in her family.
You're all lovely.
And Talia loved Topaz and her relationship with the girls. She never complained about the strange family situation she ended up in.
Yeah,
true.
And also, she sometimes would go up to London to make money for them, and like, you know, pose presumably naked for these artists. Like, she's an artist model, so presumably she's like up there. And she said, it's the ones who don't ask you to pose naked you got to worry about, or whatever. Do you remember that quote when she was talking about like whether it would make her uncomfortable to pose naked? Well, it's the ones, because they're the ones who are really imagining what you look like. The ones who ask you to pose naked don't really care, actually. So she's obviously going up to London and getting a kit off to feed this family every now and again, because they're running out of money. The money situation. And Stephen, because he is a member of the family, isn't he? Did we mention that
Nancy says she feels really sorry for Stephen, who really cared for Cassandra. So shall we come on to Stephen first, or Cassandra? Let's go Stephen. Stephen. So he was kind of cute, but tragic.
Really tragic. I think the most tragic bit for me as well is when she's in his room and she realizes that this room is just this unpleasant little like moldy old cell that he's been living in.
I know.
The whole
and
time he's there.
The only one like making money for the family. He's like going out, doing all this work and literally giving all his money to them.
Yeah, and he's also that because he is working class and he sees this class divide between them. So the class divide in the book was really stark. And that's why I kind of said, well, it's kind of like you're looking and they've got their issues, but at the same time, you know, they're not working class. They're not working class poor. And he knows how to sort of survive in the world because he's a working class person. And he's the one that ends up going out and, but he feels, even though he feels like he's part of the family, there was that whole discussion with her when she asked him to call her Cassandra. And he's like, no, my mum said, you're Miss. I never call you by your first name. And I can't call Rose by her first name. And yeah, it kind of just really made me sad for him as a character.
Yeah.
Sad.
The bit
says his room
was when he bought the present, the record.
Yeah.
That was heartbreaking too. The record player. Yeah, the radio, that was it. Oh, it was so sad.
It was
Stephen.
Honestly.
He must have saved for like years to get her that.
You know, I wanted to throw it at her head at that moment.
And that record one was probably quite heavy, so that probably would have hurt a lot.
Yeah.
And livened up the book no end.
Poor Stephen. But as I said,
he's really, really attractive as well, isn't he? Like,
yeah, he's supposed to be
attractive.
Yeah. And this is why I hope he ends up being like a famous movie star or whatever. It's like sorted.
Yeah, Nancy said that broke her heart.
Yes, Nancy. It was heartbreaking.
It was.
And Ange. Stephen was bankrolling them.
He was bankrolling him.
Poor Stephen.
And then they literally like picked on him from a great height, in my opinion.
But I did think that it was really well written how Cassandra felt that like terrible burden of, I know that he really, really loves me and I don't feel the same way. I thought that was portrayed really well in a very teenage sort of, I know coming back to the teenage angst, but it was a very like teenage sentiment, like I don't really know what love is yet, but I know that
it's not with him.
I don't feel the way I can see he feels about me, and how hard she found that.
Yeah, I think but this is the whole point. The book is because it is that like coming of age and having these realizations and working out what these things are, what these feelings are, what love is. So I kind of think you know, and so it was really well written. I just felt like that. All the unrequited love in this book. There's so much of it. And unrequited love is just tragic and heartbreaking, like to read about. And
the more Cassandra's unrequited love sort of came for other characters who we haven't got to yet, the more she realised how much she must be hurting Stephen. Yes. And she knew when she got both the presents that it was going to really, really hurt him that she'd got this other present. And she was just like not in a good position, was she? She couldn't exactly be like, well, I'll just not take that present or I'll hide it or whatever. But but it wouldn't be very honest.
But I think, like you say, this is like becoming a person as opposed to a teenager or child. Becoming like the person you're going to be, growing up, maturing, is starting to realize about people beyond yourself and starting to have a recognition of the wider implications of your behavior on other people. And she, like you say, and it's when she experiences it for herself, she starts to realize. And I do think, like you said, this was written about so well. Like, I firmly believe this is a 17-year-old girl talking to me, and it gave me echoes of me being, you know, the late teens and first love and first crushes. And when she falls in love with Simon, it gave me that kind of, I definitely felt realistic to me, this kind of teenage obsessive love that you only have when you're a teenager, like that very first love kind of feeling. Usually for someone in like a pop star or something, usually in my case. No, not quite, but Yeah, it was well written, Alice. I completely agree. I was there. I thought
it was really.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything else we want to say, I suppose, about Cassandra herself, our lovely narrator?
The humor was hilarious, and I've underlined, like I told you, underlined quite a few of her lines, and I just love the fact that she has this like that naivety, and you're just reading this. We're reading it, and I think if you read it when you're younger, like I said, I read The Diary of Adrian Mole when I was younger, and I didn't. A lot of the humor just went straight over my head because I was reading it with a teenager's eyes, and now I'm reading this, and like at one point she even says, "Oh, they've told me I'm very amusing, but I don't know why." And it's like, because you're just saying these ridiculous statements all the time. I just love that about her. But she wasn't my favorite character, I have to say, because of all of these things going on, because you constantly just want to shake her sometimes. But she wasn't my least favorite character. Like I said, I liked Topaz, I liked Stephen. I just felt for Stephen. I don't know if he was necessarily the most well-rounded character, but what they put him through just made me feel for him.
Anne just said her love for cherry brandy. That was hilarious. I enjoyed that bit.
I love the cherry brandy chocolate, you know, the liqueur chocolates when you were a kid.
Yeah.
like you don't get them anymore. There used to be little whiskey bottles. You get them at Christmas, you'd be like, "Oh, I've got some booze," but you haven't. It's just like a cherry brandy chocolate. Yeah.
I thought I liked. I liked the bit where sort of in contrast to like the nice picnic and the cherry brandy and stuff that they'd had all together, the bit where she's like really, really depressed about everything, and she like takes herself off to the pub and has cherry brandy. And she's like, "I think I'm quite drunk."
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And also she's sitting then in the what was the lady's name, the family friend? She's sitting in her room, isn't she?
Oh yeah.
She's a teacher.
Marcy, wasn't it?
Yeah, she's the teacher, Miss Marcy, that's it. So she's come down from London, and she's like a spinster, and she's a teacher, and she lives in the local pub, doesn't she? In the room, she's got a room there, and she's sitting in her room imagining, like, I don't know, she's at one point, but I can't remember what she's imagining, but I remember she's like, when she goes and visits people's rooms, I think she starts to feel this sense of their lives as separate beings, like when she's in her room, when she's in Stephen's room, she goes into her father's office, like the setting, I'm going to come onto it I suppose at some point, but it's like all of these spaces that people inhabit, she starts to think of their perspective a bit more when she's in them.
So Sam's made it. Hi, Sam. And Sam also says, "I've never had cherry brandy." I don't think I have either.
I don't think we're missing out on much, but
I've only had it in the chocolates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So shall we go on to Rose?
Oh, Rose.
The narcissist.
Yeah.
Naughty Rose.
I don't know. Yeah, Rose.
She was the unlikable character in the book, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And I think that was the whole point of her. Like juxtapose her against Cassandra. So Cassandra's got this sort of like innocent vibe, and then Rose just doesn't care about anybody.
Rose is more practical, isn't it? It's like Rose is like, I'm not here for the romance. Like, I need money. I like, you know, she's kind of that more world weary, whereas Cassandra's more whimsical and dreamy.
Yeah.
I think.
So I think it worked well at the juxtaposition, and I quite enjoyed their interactions as sisters. I thought that was quite well done, and I thought, again, realistic about how sisters would like just pick at each other.
Yeah. Jack, didn't you have a quote about her wanting to kick Rose?
Yeah, I'll find the quote, but like that just absolutely made me burst out laughing, because she was like, when Rose, I think, is it Rose? Rose is in love at this point, and she's like, "Oh, I do feel for her." Absolutely, because I can't remember. I'll find the quote, but it did make me laugh. She had quite a few really funny quotes about the sister, about the relationship, but like their relationship as sisters, it was really, like you say, really well written. I don't have a sister, but I have siblings. I have siblings, and there's kind of like this arguments and the sort of your own childhood kind of what word for it would be, like rituals and things they have, you know, like they've got all of this. It was really, really well done, I thought. But Rose, to me, she wasn't. This is it. Here we go. It said, "Never had I felt so separate from her." This is in she's talking about the two brothers. I think it's just after they've just met them. Miss Marcy told us they're talking about, that's it, because they make that dummy Miss Blossom, don't they? So whenever they want some advice, they want to give each other advice. They pretend that she's like this, like worldly, like kind of bawdy, like oh Ducky, you don't want to do that, darling, or whatever. Like, so she said Miss Blossom's going, you be natural, girly. So she's trying to tell Rose, that was it. Rose had been ridiculously silly. You remember she'd been like overly flirtatious with him, trying to think like, she's like, I'm gonna get this guy, and she's being so outrageous that she scares them off. So I think Cassandra's trying to tell her through Miss Blossom, like, calm down, like chill out. So she says, just be natural, girly. And then I went on in my own voice, how much did you like them, Rose? Oh, I don't know, but I don't like them now. I know I don't like them now. Oh, I don't even want to talk about it. And that was all she ever did talk about. That was the worst part of the gloom, our not talking naturally. Never have I felt so separate from her. And I regret to say that there were moments when my deep and loving pity for her merged into a desire to kick her fairly hard. I love that. I absolutely love that. And she's like, yeah, my deep and pity for her. I want to kick her. But that is a proper like, it's a real sibling act.
Yeah, real sibling emotion.
Yeah, I just want to kick her really hard. Rose was an opportunity. She completely was. But this is the other thing. Yeah.
And
oh, really?
I
can see what you're saying.
Yeah.
We've
got.
Oh, Heather.
Oh, hi, Heather. Hi.
She's got to go.
Enjoy the walk with the doggos.
Yeah, have a good walk. Sam says Rose was intentionally hilarious. She's like an elegant cat who's taken a stumble
multiple times. Sam. Yeah, I agree.
That was hilarious.
And Ange says sisterly love.
Sisterly love, exactly. But this is the thing, talking about Rose and her influence. So, like, we were chatting, and the other thing that made, when they're having that conversation about whether you'd rather be in a Bronte novel or hi, Charlie. Hello.
Gatecrasher.
Would you'd rather be in a Bronte or an Austen novel or whatever? And they're having that discussion. Yeah. So, like, Rose's ideas of like marrying someone to support them, it's like straight out of Austen, isn't it? Straight, like, that's for their influence. And like, you see online people like comparing the books to Austen novels. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that. Like, you can see some reflections of it, but it's like, I think more like the influence of these, because they talk about literature a lot in the book, and the things that they've read and the things that influence them. So you can kind of see where Rose has got this idea that she's I'm just gonna get married. It doesn't matter about whether I love him or not, kind of thing. It's a transaction.
And yeah, definitely. So, who else have we got? Simon and Neil.
The Cottons.
Yeah. So
the rich American brothers.
Well, they had an interesting entry into the story when they sort of half surprised Cassandra in the bath.
I love that.
That was a good entrance. And then they were really the pivotal part of the story, weren't they? So Charlie says hi, Charlie, and Ange says hi, Charlie.
Sorry, he's taken over the book club. He's gone
no, it's nice. It's a nice little cameo.
Yeah. So yeah, Simon and Neil. Yeah. I can't really think what I would want to say about Simon and Neil at the moment.
I suppose it's just like this. They shook up the story, and from that point they arrived, things started to happen. They were catalysts, weren't they?
I was going to say, I kind of see them as a catalyst as opposed to like a main key character. They're just sort of there to shake things up.
What did you think of him kissing her when they were dancing?
Dodgy.
Simon, yeah. Right.
Dodgy.
Oh, I'm just going to kiss you. Like, I'm just going to kiss you, 17-year-old girl who I'm dancing with, who's never been kissed. Like, I mean, come on. Like, what kind of... I just didn't...
Because, in the first place, he had, like, crashed her... It was her midsummer celebration, wasn't it? And she was doing it on her own because everyone else had gone off to London. And he just turned up at that, crashed that. Like, oh yeah, we'll have a lovely time, we're really good friends, blah blah blah. But it just felt a little bit inappropriate to me.
It was really inappropriate.
Like, obviously Cassandra didn't find it that inappropriate because she wanted him to be there with
she's
her.
17, like a 17-year-old girl. Like, she thinks she's, you know, grown up and enough, and also just, she's full of hormones, let's face it. Like, she's a 17-year-old girl, and she's a much older man. Like, I don't know how much older is he, in his 20s? I'm assuming he's in his 20s.
I thought he was in his 20s.
Yeah, I think he was like 26 or something.
So the bath, I just put the bath emoji. I love that though. That the way they turned up. Yes, yeah, like Joe. I
hadn't really thought of that, but definitely like Laurie and
Laurie.
I can't remember what Laurie's grandfather's name is, but
was he also Laurie? Lawrence, older Mr. Lawrence.
Probably, yeah, Mr. Lawrence. Yeah, it is reminiscent of that. I think there's a lot of sort of nods to older literature.
Yeah, classic literature.
Classics.
But yeah, the two brothers though, like I actually I don't know what I thought of Neil. I can't think now because I read the book like at the start of November. I'm like trying to my thoughts on them. But in terms of what he did, the way he kicked off the feelings she had for him, hugely inappropriate. Exactly. I think
I suppose that age gap was probably more acceptable in the 20s than it is now. I mean, if we knew of a mid-20s propositioning a 17-year-old whilst pursuing her sister, but
he saw it all as like an innocent kiss, like a peck, and I'm like, but I think a kiss on the lips is one of the most intimate things, isn't it? So it's like, kiss her on the cheek, and even that would have been a bit inappropriate because you're dancing with your fiance's sister and she's younger, and you know, she's got to be very careful. What made it
really, really inappropriate was that prior to that, he'd kept calling her like a kid, or like she's just like the little kid sister. Yeah. But if you're going to say that, then don't be dancing with her and kissing her and stuff behind your fiance's back. That's just right.
Yes, Simon. Shame on Simon.
What a cat.
I can't remember if like Rose never found out about that, did she? Like it was only ever between those two. No one else ever found out about it. I can't remember.
Not as far as I can remember. So the castle itself was almost like a character, wasn't it? It's very much a character in the story to me. Yeah. A bit like you've got other, but in that sense, it reminded me of Rebecca in the like Manderley is like a
Wuthering
real
Heights.
Character.
You're like Wuthering Heights is the classic for that, isn't it?
Well, the house.
The house and the setting and everything. I love the idea of this big old rambling castle. I like the scene where we were treated to them discovering the castle. Yeah. So we were sort of told how they came to live at the castle.
Yeah, through like overgrown lane, and I could really picture. I know places like that. Do you know what I mean? It's just
it's in Suffolk though, isn't it? It's set in Suffolk.
It's a real place, but it made me think of like Framlingham Castle. If anyone's ever been there, but yeah, maybe sort of that's how I imagined it in my mind. But it was a brilliant for the novel.
I really enjoyed the sort of that first exploration of it. You could really picture after that how it all fitted together and like what it was like originally to what's changed about it, how they've had to like sell their furniture and that sort of thing.
And the father up at the gatehouse, wasn't he? Like he's off up at the gatehouse, like leave me alone.
Imagine how cool that would be though, to have your office in like a gatehouse.
I know. I love it.
I really liked the bit towards the end. I think it was that Cassandra and Thomas were like up in the gatehouse watching over the dungeon when they'd done that. I really loved that they got to like be in the writing room, and but all his writing was like gibberish, wasn't it, to them?
Well, he was literally just doing the crossword and like reading mystery novels.
Yeah, basically.
Kind of envied him there, I bet you, Alice, didn't you? Like just since they're reading the latest mystery.
Definitely. So Kat agrees about Simon, too intimate.
Yeah, far too intimate.
And Charlie says, I love it when settings add so much to the story.
Yeah.
It brings it alive because the title, I Capture the Castle, the whole thing, the whole thing about her notebook and the format of the book is her capturing people. She even says it at one point, I think I've captured that quite well. I think I've captured this. And it's like this, she's trying to train herself as a writer to capture these moments. And the whole book, the name of it, I Capture the Castle. And it really did. It did. It completely encapsulated.
Clever title.
Sure. Yeah. It totally didn't make sense to me until you she starts to say, "Oh, like I'm capturing this," and like showing us the castle, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's why it's called I Capture the Castle," because it's almost like the name puts you in mind of like battle, doesn't it?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
People attacking castles.
It's a very clever play on words.
Meaning of that. Yeah.
Very clever play on words.
So Talia said, I've forgotten about the dungeon. We'll get onto the dungeon. And an adaptation. My mum's lent me the adaptation, but I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I've managed to get a copy of it and I want to watch it. I haven't watched it yet.
It's got the girl in it who, I don't know if she's playing the main character, but she was the main one in one of the versions of Emma, I think. I've forgotten her name totally. It might come back to me.
Is it like an older? Because I can't remember I don't know when the film was made.
I know what her name is. It's Romola Garai or something like that. Is her name?
Just have a
she played Emma, I think, in the BBC series. And she's in it, and it's got Helena Bonham Carter as Topaz.
Perfect. That's perfect casting, actually.
Very good casting.
I haven't looked at the cast, so that's perfect casting.
Yeah, that is exactly how I pictured her.
So I found it a bit difficult to imagine what the castle looked like. I'm not from the UK. Yeah, I can understand that because I think
there are parts of it where it's like there's old battlements and the really old part of the castle, but there are parts of it that were stately home-like. So, that were more modern, weren't there? That whoever had lived there after, family owned the castle, had added onto it. So there were different eras of building all muddled together, which I loved. It must be hard to picture actually because not seen
Mary
it.
said she didn't like the adaptation. It is Romola Garai, and it has a great cast,
it's not
but it was a 2 thumbs down.
Interesting.
I will watch it and see what I think. I'm never a very big fan of adaptations, so I won't hold out a huge amount of hope.
I can go either way. With them.
So shall we see? So our other talking points were kind of incidents in the book. So shall we come back to the bear?
Yeah.
Probably the biggest, most exciting event in the early part of the book.
Yeah. And actually you don't realise how important it is until later.
Yeah.
But what happens there. But it's hilarious.
But I mean, even like the setup to this scene where they go to London and they like get this ticket for these fairs, and I just thought that whole setup, I really loved that, and the two sisters together, and I just thought the whole setup was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Also, because following the story finishing, her sister goes off with Neil, doesn't she? So we're not spoiling it for anyone, I hope. But these moments with Rose, they're moments in London, and at one point I think she reflects back on it. It's the last time they're really together as sisters.
Definitely.
And it's kind of there's I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but there's these moments in your life like these what I was reading recently. I can't remember. It'll come back to me. But where you have a realization that you didn't realize that was kind of the last time in your life that you'd be with that group of people or be in that situation. Like when Rose leaves home, that's it. That's their childhood sisterhood gone and over. And she also reflects on that when she goes back to London. She's like, the last time I was here, we were walking around, we didn't have a penny to our names and blah, blah, blah. So that whole build up, Gemma, I agree, to the bear. Like, it's not just that scene with her running off the track, which was a hilarious incident, but that whole build to it and why they were there and why they had these furs. And it was a lovely bit of sort of their relationship together.
It's kind of their last hurrah in the book, wasn't it? Before they were split up forever.
And you don't realise it. So like that's that thing. Like you don't realise that sometimes these moments are your
You've
last.
got no idea at that point, have you?
No, no. Especially when it comes to sort of childhood moments being over or whatever. So it's.
I think that was the point though, where I wanted Rose to get shot or mauled by the dog, and then 5-star read.
Oh, that would have made it a Gemma book for sure.
Oh, Henry Cavill.
Yeah,
he is beautiful. So yes, I'm all in for that. Yeah, he is. Yes.
The kissing scene is apparently painful though.
Oh, it should be though, isn't it? It's supposed to be
I can picture that.
It's supposed to be awkward, isn't it? Ah, bye, Charlie. Happy New Year. Thanks for coming. Bye.
So but the bear was just hysterical, wasn't it? I think it was
and really well written. Like really, like I was like, oh my god! When I was reading it, I was gripped. Really.
I think it was the.
Going afterwards, they lied to everybody and said they actually like killed a bear and it like floated off.
Oh yeah, that was a real bear, totally.
Like that classic English animal, the bear. Oh no, they said they got it from a circus.
It was escaped from a circus, and they actually didn't they find a circus owner who like was persuaded to
but
to actually say, oh yeah, because it was good publicity for him.
Oh dear, brilliant.
Nancy also says she has to leave, but enjoyed this. She'll be reading, make it into the next one.
Yay! Cool. Join us for the next one. Yeah, I'm excited about the next one.
And Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year,
Nancy. Bye. Yeah, I think the bear was definitely the most talked about moment in the Discord group, if anyone joined in, because I think everybody was being very careful in the group not to give anybody any spoilers. So all that was appearing in the chat ever was like a little bear emoji. Yeah. Bear emoji. Yeah. So on to another incident, the writing dungeon we have mentioned. But yeah, what did people think of that?
Oh, terrifying.
They decided to shut their dad in the dungeon.
I think he deserved to be shut in the dungeon, to be fair.
The dad was just so he was so self-involved and selfish. Like I mean, I know it's like of a time, especially the 1930s, and fathers weren't that involved with their families or children, but he's the only parent around, and he's just living his life regardless of whether they've got money or not, because at this point he doesn't even know that they've not got any money for food or anything. So I kind of agree with you in that sense. Just like he deserves to be shut up in a dungeon. But at the same time, what they did to him made me have an anxiety attack almost, because it's like my worst nightmare, someone doing something like that to me. I was like, oh.
Yeah, feel about doing it to someone that was a jerk.
Yeah. And it worked randomly.
Yeah. I think the idea behind it, like Thomas's and Cassandra's logic was quite sound. Like they were trying to recreate his prison days, weren't they?
It was psychology, wasn't it? They were doing a lot of psychology. They kept mentioning psychology, didn't they?
Yeah.
Newfangled thing.
Everyone has to say. Oh, Julie says hello.
Hi, Julie.
And Mary says that was fun. That's it. Julie says, have a great live, ladies.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks. Sam says the dungeon was such a Three Stooges like scheme.
It was brilliant.
It really was.
And agrees. They're coming. Everybody's working to feed them, and he's just sitting around doing nothing. Agree.
Yeah.
And Sam says she feels like he was super selfish.
Oh, he really was. I think that the whole supported it fully.
Charlie supports it fully. And Elise says the dungeon makes me think about what it takes to find inspiration amongst daily life.
Interesting.
I did think it had a good basis in. I thought it had a good foundation, this idea. And Shelley says hi. Shelley. And Ange loves the dungeon.
Yeah. I think the dad as well. The dad in the books. I think we haven't really talked about his book. This famous book, and actually, like when you read it, he's an experimental author for the time, and they kind of almost compare him to, like, they're saying, oh, if he'd have carried on, he'd be at the same sort of level as like Joyce or whatever. So he's kind of in the same vein as like James Joyce style of writer, where there's sort of, you know, agreed that it's all very clever, but there's division over whether it's enjoyable or not, I suppose, for a lot of people, you know.
I really like the way it was like incorporated into the book, as though it was like, I fully believed that this was a genuine real book, and like, obviously I didn't because it was fictional, but like
Jacob Wrestling or whatever, Jacob
Wrestling was a real book. And like I loved the way the family coming in were like, oh yeah, we've heard of you, we've done lectures about your book, we love your book. And it really did, I thought it was really believable, this idea of this like washed up writer who's had a load of fame on one book, and then
you see, I thought it was
never wrote a word again.
Yeah, but this is it. I thought he was like, you know, he's struggling with the difficult second album, isn't he? He's like, that's what I thought. He's like, you know, a Harper Lee or something. He's like, everything I write after this is awful. I can't do it, and in a way. But suppose that them forcing him and that kickstarting him, it just did get him. He's got nothing else to do at this point. They're not going to send him down his mystery novels or anything. I have DNF'd his play. I would too, Lynn. Boring. It sounded awful, but yeah.
And Sam found the concept of his book believable too.
And it brought the Cottons kind of a bit more into their lives, didn't it? So it was another kind of catalyst for this relationship between the Cottons and the Mortmains, was that their interest in him. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie.
He's having a good time.
Shelley says that, yes, the father seemed like a Harper Lee to me.
Yes, very much
indeed.
Yeah.
Tough love at its extreme. Yeah,
definitely.
The dungeon.
Serious tough love.
But interesting, all that we've said about Topaz as well. The minute she came back, she's like, no, he's got to come out of there. You can't do this. It's inhumane. Like, put the ladder down there immediately.
Like, it shows her protective. She really loved him. The protective nature of her. She was
She did.
But was maybe her softness some of the cause of his inability to write a second novel?
Expectation, maybe like the weight of her expectation. Well, she also called him a genius a lot, didn't she? She's the weight of her expectation on him. So like Shelley says there, that living up to his original genius and all the pressure. And Topaz, like, really like admired him, and she's always going about how clever he is and everything else. So it's like you said, that adds to that what she's doing. I think.
Like, really, it's not very surprising that he's not written again, is it? Because he's had a complete change in his life. He's been in jail. His wife has died. They've moved into this crumbling castle with his second wife. You know, his circumstances have completely changed. I know we've said he's like been a bit naughty, not actually.
I suppose they do say that his personality changed completely from when he went to prison, which it would do, I suppose. So we're not being very sympathetic to him, to his psychological state, really.
But then at the same time,
the comment, Gemma, you might be able to.
Yeah. Good point.
Sounds like heaven. Just lock me here, leave me my meals.
They brought in nice meals and everything. So, dearie me. Yeah. So yeah, that was a favourite moment for me.
But I mean, like, those days, like, if you were told you could have like unlimited peace and quiet in your own office in a secluded castle in the middle of Suffolk, that would be like the dream. Do you know what I mean? Jane Austen was writing like.
Yeah, putting her writing away while people are coming in and out. Yeah, it's like, put that away.
Grow a pair, write a book.
And all he wanted to do was read mysteries and eat biscuits.
And can't we all relate to that?
We can all relate to that.
Topaz was our favourite, Shelley.
Yeah,
we were like, we all loved her. She was great. Yeah. She should get her own novel. We should have like a Rebecca, like what is it? Not Rebecca.
The Topaz version.
Yeah, a Topaz version. Wild Sargasso Sea. Topaz.
Mary says, spending time with my granddaughter. Looking forward to chatting again in a couple of months. Thanks, Mary. Thank you for coming in. And yeah, so I suppose the other moment we have noted down is the sort of scandal towards the end. So maybe if you haven't read this book and you don't want to know the ending,
Probably spoiled it already for you. This is spoiler filled.
Most of the spoilers are coming now. So the scandal at the end, and I actually thought that this was a bit, we've talked about Jane Austen a bit, but was a bit Jane Austen-esque. Like suddenly there's a scandal, people have
it was very Sense and Sensibility, wasn't it?
Run off.
There's a secret relationship. Oh, you haven't? Yeah, no spoilers.
That's my last one.
But I didn't see it coming. I was really nice, but when it happened, I was like, oh, of course. I hate her so much. Oh, I hate him so much. It was just too much chat about how much she hated him, or whatever. Too much going on about that. And I love the fact that Stephen, was it Stephen who spotted it when they were saying about her not being in love with Simon, and they said, oh, it was the younger brother. That's it, Thomas. So Thomas says, no, because when so-and-so was in love, they never stopped talking about this person. And Rose never talks about Simon. She always writes, and she talks about the clothes, and she talks about this, and she talks about that. And he was quite right. He was spot on, because when someone is into someone, you like, please shush about this person. And she wasn't. But I didn't see the other part of it coming at all.
No. I'm with you there. I never believed that she was in love with Steve.
No.
Yeah, I didn't see
I didn't see Neil coming in and taking her away.
No. And he was just so horrible about her, wasn't he, all the time?
Did you not feel like it was a massive relief though at the end to suddenly, because I was kind of like, why is Rose going to marry this person? She clearly doesn't like him. Cassandra likes him. This is just like really, and then that happens, and I was like, oh phew! Like Rose can actually be with someone she's going to be happy with. They can go off to America and do whatever they want to do. And I felt like Cassandra got a better ending out of it as well.
Yeah, I think they all got
although not the ending we expected necessarily. So it was a reread, but the first read I definitely didn't see it coming.
Yeah, it was a big a big sort of mic drop moment. I was like, oh, But I loved it when Cassandra goes to confront her about being in love with him as well. That was really tense when she goes and that scene. Yeah, and then she leaves in the middle of the night, doesn't she? She goes into London on her own with no money. I'm like, my gosh,
that was so like, what is she doing?
And then Stephen to the rescue.
All-night cafe was hilarious.
The cafe.
Again,
I've ordered a pot of tea. I don't know what to do. How long can I sit here with my pot of tea?
I'm gonna get arrested.
But it's just her and the dog, isn't it? Oh, the dog. We didn't talk about the dog. She had the dog with her, didn't she?
Oh no, yeah.
Did she have the dog with her in the cafe?
She did.
That's right.
I can't even remember the dog's name. Poor dog.
The dog was very sweet.
I've forgotten the dog's name, and there was a cat at the
dog and a cat,
well, wasn't there?
The cat. That's it, because they were named after Abelard and
Yeah, they were.
I've
forgotten the other one's name.
Anyway, I've forgotten. Someone more literary will know. But
someone tell us in the comments.
Someone in the comments. The cat and the dog. But yeah, the whole when she that was just such a pivotal thing. And she confronts Rose, and then she storms out into London like at 3 a.m, goes to Piccadilly Circus or somewhere, and you're
ridiculous.
I mean, now it wouldn't matter because there's millions of people there at 3 a.m, regardless of what time you go. But that's Eloise and Abelard. That's it. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Lynn, as well.
Well done, Lynn. Yeah. But yeah, and then poor Stephen comes to the rescue. He comes to the rescue. I just felt Stephen all the way through this book. And they have their discussion.
Stuff like that when I was a teenager. Did you ever go out in the middle of the night or walk home from a nightclub at stupid o'clock in the morning? And
generally with friends, not on my own, but
you're 17 and you're invincible, and you don't really think about it until it's too late.
And it's like, I've got no money, I'm gonna get arrested. But this is the thing, it's like, and then all these realizations for her, like this is what I was saying about her, this novel, and it is really, in terms of a coming of age novel, I think it's so well layered of her realizations about herself, about the world, about everyone around her, and they just keep coming in this book, and this naivety of her, and she's all these things are revealed, and when she's standing on that bridge with him, and just all of her this is about maturity, and that's what maturity is, isn't it? I think it's like really usually being pushed to the shopping trolley. That's not maturity though. But yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's like these moments. But I think like there's one bit, I was looking through for those quotes, and I found one I'd underlined, and there's like this when she's chatting to Rose in bed, like they're chatting when they're in bed, and she says, oh dear, I've just thought if Stephen was worrying about me being hungry, because he's always bringing her food and chocolate and stuff, he was probably hungry himself. Like she's only just realizing all these things, like all of her. Yeah, it's really, the more I think about it, the more I reflect on it, the more it's like, oh yeah, that is what a teenager is like. That is what a child is like growing into a person.
Yeah,
actually straight into the ending. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by the ending. I was glad Rose and Neil went off and did their thing. I was pretty surprised by Cassandra's decision at the end, but I think it was the right one for her because she wanted to be a writer. She wanted to. I think the quote that I've written down is, "I only want to write, and there's no college for that except life." So she'd kind of just decided, I'm just going to experience stuff, and I'm going to write stuff, and that's me. I don't need a man.
But that's kind of like quite a feminist ending, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to go off. Oh, I've got my chance to go off this person I've mooned over for months and months and months. Whether it would be
love.
Yeah. So in the end, it's she doesn't go with Stephen, even though Stephen's this dreamboat who loves her to bits, and like it'd probably be quite easy to just fall into that with him, but she doesn't. Yeah. And then she doesn't go off with him. So she's like, I want to be a writer. And yeah, I thought it was, when I read it, I was like, oh, poor Stephen. Poor Stephen. But actually, it wasn't right for her. She wasn't in love with him. And yeah, her choice was like about her and what she wanted to be. I loved it too, Alice. I thought it was really good.
It does show her growth through the novel as she moved completely self-centered and unaware to sort of reflective and aware of what she wants from the world, I suppose. But I really wanted her to get with Stephen.
Maybe they do later. Maybe they realise later.
Maybe.
I definitely think that if Simon had turned around and said, marry me in like part 2 or at the early part of part 3, she would have been like, yes, please.
Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Never mind about Rose, she doesn't love you. But she had matured over the course of the book.
She did.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she has. And it most definitely. A bit abrupt, agreed. Yeah. Yes, it was abrupt. It was abrupt. Her choices were good, but the ending was quite abrupt.
It was, and I think that was mainly because we'd had so much, like, it's a very much a slow build book, isn't it? And we'd had part 1 that was like all like, this is the castle, these are the people in it, like really, really long setup, and then a few little incidents and things on the way through part 2, part 3, incident, end.
I think it is abrupt, but I suppose it's like the structure of the novel are these 6-penny books. And she's been given these 6-penny books, and she's writing these diary entries, and it is like that. So what she does at the end, though, I think I've just looked at the end, the last bit. She fills up the margins.
It's true. Look,
finishing off.
She's run out of paper.
Yeah, it's true. Exactly. That's the whole point of it. So it's these diaries, structure of the novel, and at the end, she says, "Only the margin left to write in now. I love you. I love you. Yeah. Only the margins left to write in. So it's kind of the end of that.
It's like finish
that
my
notebook.
Book, the end.
Notebook's done. Yeah. She.
So it does make sense in that way.
It makes sense for the structure, but yeah, I know what you mean in terms of there was so much build up, and then it just we're out of their lives. Then,
but what I liked about this book as well, another thing I liked about it was that they're the kind of characters you do think about again. Like a couple of times in the last month, I've been like, oh yeah, I remember that book. I remember Cassandra. I remember Stephen.
It's a very memorable book. Yeah, I think the incidents in it.
They do kind of stick with you, and I can see why you get a lot of sort of famous authors and people who say this book was influential on me. I know you said about it in your like build-up video, Jack.
Yes, I didn't realise.
Name this as like their influential book, and you can see why. It's very much a teenage coming of age. if you read it as a teenager, I think a lot of people that will have had a huge influence on.
And I do think, like, having thought about if I'd read it as a teenager, I don't think I'd have enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed it now. Because I think it stands the test of time because I think it's well written. I think it's a kind of masterclass in character development. It really is. And I think that's why it's kind of got this longevity about it. And it's just, and it's humorous, it's funny, and it captures a moment, and that's what it's supposed to do. It's like capturing this period in her life. And I think it really did reflect to me, that reminded me of what it was like being a teenager and that angst. It did remind me of that. But I don't know if I'd have enjoyed it as a teenager as much. I don't know.
I was saying to my mum yesterday, I think, that I really would have enjoyed it as a teenager because I was really, really into diary books. But the thing I think I wouldn't have liked about it was the sort of old-fashioned element to it. And I really like books set in the 30s and so on much more than I did even like a year ago. So I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much as a teenager as some people do. But I would have still liked the diary element, I think.
I think it would have been a really interesting one to study in like year 10 and 11. Like if you were picking it apart, I think you but to read it on my own at that age, I would have probably been bored because it is that like that style of writing though, isn't it? It's just I mean, I was a bit bored now and I'm in my 30s, but yes, that style of writing where it's an acquired taste, I think.
Very much so.
So I think we've covered all of our moments, but does anybody in the comments have any favourite moments they want to bring up, or any questions they want to ask while we're still on here? Because I think we've talked about all our other things. Apart from
while you're waiting for questions, I think I can mention that as well, because there's constant, like when I had a look at it online at the book and like looking after I finished reading it, and it was like, these references about it being, compared to Austen and Pride and Prejudice a lot and stuff like that. But it's within the book that they do that, because we were just looking back at that like just before we came online, and it says, did you think of anything when Miss Marcy said Scopeney Hall was being reopened? I thought of the beginning of Pride and Prejudice, where Mrs. Bennet says Netherfield Park is let at last. And then they go on to talk about that's it. And then Mr. Bennet goes over to call on the rich new owner. But Mr. Bennet didn't owe him any rent, I said. Father wouldn't go anyway. How I wished I lived in a Jane Austen novel. And I said I'd rather be in a Charlotte Bronte. So like straight away, like I think you got that set up with Rose saying I wish I lived in a Jane Austen novel, which I've thought occasionally myself, but though I do prefer being able to have electricity and the vote and stuff. But but the and penicillin and things, but but when she says it, it's kind of, this is where her mind goes when she's like, this is how I save my family. I get married, or I marry a rich person. This is how and it's come from that place, isn't it? Because they talk about literature throughout, and I do like their discussion. Would you rather be, which would be nicest, Jane with a touch of Charlotte or Charlotte with a touch of Jane? So in terms of if you're going to be in the novels, have a mixture, what would be nicer? I'm not quite sure. So
Ange has commented, it was a great start for the FOMO Book Club. Yay. Thanks, Ange. It's always a bit like nerve-wracking. We picked these books a while ago, didn't we? And had like a great time picking the books.
Oh yeah.
But then you never know how you're actually going to get on with these books that you've missed out on, because maybe you missed out on them because you couldn't be bothered to read it the first
maybe
time
they
around.
weren't for you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think we're going to get, between the three of us, I think we're always going to get an interesting mixture of what we thought. But yeah, I'm glad it was 2 out of 3 on this one. Not a Gemma book.
And I didn't hate it. It's good for debate though, isn't it?
Not enough murders.
No, yeah.
So Shelley's favourite moment, the bear moment, made me laugh out loud. I'm sure you chatted about it. We did.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Actually, I think I don't think I've laughed out loud as much reading a book recently as I did reading this one. So kind of that shows quite a bit.
It did make me laugh a lot.
Yeah, it really did make me laugh out loud.
And Sam also says the bear moment got me hooked. The moment Cassandra read Rose's letter broke my heart. It was so sad. And Paris 6 is, I'm sure the discussion will still be great if nobody likes it.
Probably better. Probably better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. So we've not had any questions. If anybody has any, let us know. Don't know what I've done with the banners. The last thing we had was any other recommendations. So in the Discord group, there was some talk about Cold Comfort Farm, which I think is by Stella Gibbons.
Yeah.
And I haven't read this book. I don't know anything about it, but I think in terms of being set in a similar period, perhaps, and in terms
the
of
eccentricity,
humour,
isn't it? Like the eccentric family thing is in Cold Comfort Farm.
And I think humour, but even more so maybe than the humour in this. So could be a recommendation for people. I think somebody in the chat did go on to read it. So if that was you, let us know.
It says it was actually published in 1932, Cold Comfort Farm. So yeah, so it's
we've had that one. So somebody said, yes, so much laughing. I wasn't expecting so much humour and excitement. Can't wait for the next book.
Yeah, same. It's not similar in terms of setting or anything like that, but I'm gonna recommend The Diary of Adrian Mole.
Oh yeah,
by Stu Townsend, which is very, very different because it's written in the 80s, but it's a teenage boy's diary. And if you're British, you'll know it. And if you're not, you may not be as familiar, but it was such a big part of the 80s over here. There was a TV show and everything. And I read the book, I reread it last year, I think. And I read it when I was a teenager, and I don't remember it being as funny because I didn't get, much like Cassandra, Adrian Mole, he's so naive and he says the most ridiculous things, and he thinks he's grown up, but he's not. And he's absolutely ridiculous. And it's just, you're seeing the world through his eyes, and there's all these things going on with the adults in his life, and he's commenting on them, but you're reading between the lines, and it's just hilarious. It's really funny.
I loved it as a teenager. I loved that book.
I really enjoyed it as a teenager, but I kind of missed so much of the humor, I think.
I think I'm due for a reread, and I would like to reread it so that I can reread like the later ones, because didn't you have some that came out that were about him in his 30s?
Yeah,
or something like that, which I have not read.
I think another one I would like, if they liked this, is The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot.
Yeah,
I didn't like it.
So if you like this, you might like another one I didn't like.
Yeah, but it's a similar thing, quite slow and meandering. It's focused around a female character and her sort of progression through into adulthood and how she changes. And obviously, it's set a bit before the 30s, but it's got similar vibes. I found it equally dull.
Gemma's like, if you like boring books, try George Eliot.
But I do like the period, and I do think it's kind of made me think I really need to read more sort of Woodhouse and stuff like that, because I've never read any, and I think that's kind of more humorous British eccentricity kind of thing.
I like the Jeeves and Wooster ones that I've read so far. There's a really good audio of that with Stephen Fry.
I'd love to listen to that.
Some of the Jeeves and Wooster books, and I've only just started it. I think I've listened to like the first 2 or 3 books. They are very, very funny. So Shirley's recommending Anne of Green Gables.
Yes, without shadow of a doubt.
Gables, regardless.
But everyone should read it. Yes. I think it's the most underrated of books. Like, really needs. Oh yes, Barbara Pym.
And Ange would recommend Barbara Pym. I haven't got to Barbara Pym yet.
I'll work with that then, Ange.
I've just finished The Enchanted April. If you liked, it was very, very, like, in terms of humour and character development. Like, I don't think you like it, Gemma, at all. But The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnhem, I've just finished. I was reading it with Mary, and Barbara Pym and Elizabeth von Arnhem, these very wry observations on society, on people, on women actually in society as well. It's like in Enchanted April, these 4 women go off to a castle in Italy. It's like the 1920s. And it's very funny. Like the characters, I actually laughed out loud reading that as well, actually, into that. Anne of Green Gables. My heart, I love that.
And it's not for you.
Barbara Pym. Barbara Pym is not for you, Gemma.
But
I've just got Ange got me a Barbara Pym. She sent me a Barbara Pym recently because I've only read one. I read Quartet in Autumn, which was great. And we've got Jane and Prudence, which is like I think her most famous one. Jane and Prudence.
What we got? So Kat says, this was an enjoyable chat, ladies. Thanks.
Good.
I'm looking forward to reading Jamaica Inn. It will be my first Daphne du Maurier book.
Happy
New Year.
Me too.
Is it?
Yeah, because I've got Rebecca and I was supposed to read it this month for AJ's
book club.
And I've just had no time. I
I
might read it in January.
To read Rebecca.
I'm going to read it. I'm planning. I will try and read it.
Read it before Jamaica Inn.
Okay.
It will be my my fourth if you count short stories. I've read a book of short stories as well. So finally, January and February's pick is Jamaica Inn.
Mine's on my Kindle.
I'm very excited for Jamaica Inn.
Yeah,
I'm feeling dark and gothic.
Yeah, I think on my time. So it'll be a Gemma book.
It will totally be a Gemma book. There'll be some misery for sure.
Yes, we need more misery.
So today was
misery in our lives.
Today here was quite rainy and stormy, and I was thinking, I really want to start Jamaica Inn. Like, we need a dark day where it's rainy and stormy, and we're on the Cornish moors.
And the thing is, like,
it'll be every day.
Because you know we've been talking about like, we'll have to like read it nearer to the live, so we're not going, what was the brother's name or whatever. But I just want to start it now.
I don't know if I can hold on. I think this is why we picked it for January and February, because we thought it would be dark and gothic, and January and February is a very dark gothic-y time, isn't it?
Yes.
So we've got, and
love to
Jamaica will be another reread for some.
I love Rebecca.
Me too. I love Rebecca. Everybody read Rebecca. It's so good. Yeah. If Shelley's still here, I've already read Rebecca with Shelley last year, not this year. And it was so good. We had such a good buddy read.
Oh, amazing.
Yay, Daphne du Maurier. Yes. First Daphne du Maurier. Ange says she loves Rebecca. Yay.
Lots of Rebecca.
Rebecca's one of my faves.
Join us.
Join us. Come to the dark side. Shelley says she's still here, and we did read it. Yes, we did.
Alice, it wasn't a dream, Alice. It happened.
No, that was true. I think it might have been like one of our first ever buddy reads.
I said to Gemma, we should have a like a booktube book waffle convention at Jamaica Inn. Should be like a good destination. Yeah. And you'd have to go in the winter.
Read the book in Jamaica Inn. That would be
perfect. Like Inception.
Aesthetic, Jack. Cornwall in the winter would be horrific.
I know, exactly. For the setting, I'd want to see it like wild and desolate, and then I'd want to get home soon.
Yeah, see, Shelley said it's her first buddy read.
Was it yours as well, Alice? Or
I think it was literally pipped to the post. I had one like the week before I did Rebecca, but it was pretty close. And Ange says, "Ooh." I'm not sure what in reference to. Maybe the trip to Jamaica Inn.
The Jamaica Inn convention.
Yeah. That literally
it's
for Ange to get to Cornwall.
Oh, it's like
that will be a very long journey.
Cornwall's a long journey for anyone. I don't know what it is, because physically it's actually, no further than me going to Scotland, but it's so much easier to get to Scotland.
Right? Yeah. Like the foot of Britain.
Yeah. You're like, there's no motorways. You're like, me and Dave. Well, this is it, because we drove to Penzance once because we had to get the ferry to go to the Scilly Isles, and we got the ferry to the Scilly Isles. You would have thought I could have got to America quicker than it took me to get to the Scilly Isles, because we had to drive down to Cornwall and we had to drive overnight to get to the ferry, because there's only one a day. And we had to get to Penzance, which is right at the very bottom. And it took us like all night. And then we had 3-hour ferry ride to the Scilly Isles. I was like, where are we going? This is still Britain? Is it still Britain? I thought it was a small place. It's supposed to be small. Yeah, Cornwall. I'd love to go. Jamaica Inn. That's on the list.
Yes. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody who has joined us.
There's a Goodreads group now, just in case you weren't aware.
Tell us about the Goodreads group, Jack.
Yes, just to say, because I just can't get my head around Discord. I just can't get my head around it. So I pop on every now and again. I still will pop on every now and again and go, don't know what I'm doing. So I set up the Discord, the Goodreads group. It's a public group. So if you want to join it, you can just search for us on if you go onto the community, I don't know if it's got it on the app, but if you go onto a laptop or a computer, there's the community tab on Goodreads, and you can search for groups. And if you search FOMO Book Club, it will come up. And then you can just click join and you'll join. There's no questions. There's no sort of process. It's just an open group. And I'm trying to set up there's a folder for every book, and you can see what books are forthcoming, what the dates are. And I'm trying to set up a folder, a discussion for each chapter, so we can have as many spoiler-filled discussions once we've read the chapters as we like within the separate discussions. Problem is, it's taking me a while to set up each discussion, because every time you set up 3, it goes no more, and you have to wait a few hours to set up the next one. So I'll be doing this forever. There's only 18 chapters. I think I've done 10 discussions.
Thank you for setting that up.
So far. But yeah, it's going to be much easier. I think we've got about 11 members in there already.
Excellent.
Good.
So if you're not a fan of Discord, head over to Goodreads. If you still want to join our Discord, do. I think I've put the link to both of them in the description of this as well, if you're watching this not live. Or if you're still here and you want to click either of those links, please do. Hopefully I've put them there. And if I haven't put them there, I'll go and put them in there now. And Anne says, as long as the sat nav doesn't take her over the Cornish moors the way it took her over the Yorkshire moors, she'll be all right.
Yeah.
Says, thank you, ladies. Great start to the club and great discussion. Happy New Year. And we've got yay for the Goodreads group. I'm too old for the cutesy emojis on Discord.
Yes.
So agree.
Same. I think you've done brilliantly, Alice. Best hostessing.
Thank you. And Jamaica Inn will be hosted by Gemma, I believe. So it'll be over to Gemma's channel. Look out for an announcement about it at the end of February.
Yay. What exciting.
Yeah.
This has been fun.
And thank you so much, everybody that came. And
thanks, everyone.
As you say, Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you for coming. Happy New Year.
And enjoy your read of this.
Yes.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Oh, I'm pressing end. Bye.